Ooh, here we are.
Okay, now we're live. We're live.
Are we? I can't
Let's
see.
see. I'll have to find it on Facebook. Oh, it's look at the eyeball. We can see the eyeball in StreamYard. Can y'all? I can.
No, I
Oh,
think only admins can.
okay.
I see the live thing though, so I think it's working.
Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Here we are. Hi. Hi, good morning to everybody that's signing on. I see Jana, so hello. Please say hello in the comments. I'm noticing that the subtitles are hiding the person on the bottom. Noted. That didn't happen on Zoom. We are on a new platform today. We're so excited to just glow up a little bit for the new year using StreamYard. Hi to Jordan and Jana and James and Becca and everyone who's signing on. We're going to share some announcements as you sign on. And I think, let's see. Yeah, it's happening. Hello to our leaders.
I feel like we're so cool.
We're so cool. Y'all don't even know how cool we are yet. Let's see. Wait, David, can we grab something here? Look, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh, dang.
Did we do it? Is it doing it? I can't see.
I'm so delighted by this.
Okay, so y'all, we're on a new platform and there's all these different features and we are literally playing with said features right now. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you make it? Did it do it? Why is it not doing it? It's showing the chat, David. Maybe you can figure it out. Okay, I need to actually share the announcements. So worship guide link is going to be coming in the comments as usual. So please click on that to follow along with everything happening. Again, we're on a new platform and I'm sort of watching several things happening at once for, there it is. Yep, it's working. What is David saying? David, reveal yourself to us. There's David Stipik. Hello to David. David is our tech guy today because we are on StreamYard and it involves a little bit more finagling, but there's a lot more we can do here. So I'm excited for y'all to see it. David, thank you so much for being willing to help today. I also wanted to say to those of you watching, if you are someone who would be willing to help in this kind of a way where you're sort of backstage in the online streaming with us and helping us move through transitions and stuff, but not necessarily being seen, please let me know. Please let one of us know because we need to create a sort of a volunteer rotation for that and we need your help to do that. So that is one announcement. I still don't understand. I still feel like I haven't seen a chat make it across the screen, but maybe it'll happen later. Thank you. Thanks. See, we already got a volunteer. I'm going to be reading these comments. So let us know in the comments as well if you're interested. Okay, as usual, please grab your communion elements. There it is. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing it. Do y'all see this? This is exciting to me. The little announcements at the bottom. Okay, grab your communion elements. And that's one of the announcements. Also, we have a winter book group that starts meeting tomorrow. It's meeting 3 times over the course of the winter. And tomorrow's the first meeting. It is not too late to sign up for the Braiding Sweetgrass book group. The link is in the comments to sign up. We're taking appropriate measures. And y'all, I've been reading this book for the last couple of weeks and it is so beautiful. Like my friend Brittany said, the words are like actual art. It's like you're beholding art. It's crazy beautiful. And we'd love for you to read along with us.
Yes, tomorrow we'll be discussing the first 12 essays. We're taking the book in 3 parts. So tomorrow's the first 12 essays. And I don't get notifications on the sign-up sheet. So if you sign up, can you DM me or email me or something? Because in this short notice, it's hard for me to know if anybody signs up last minute.
Yes. Yeah. I'm highlighting that comment from Jonathan. I didn't think David would do it for himself. Okay. Thank you, Fran. We have another announcement that I'm going to let Naomi share.
Yes, today we have a kid gathering outside at a park in Pflugerville. It's for ages 7 to 10. And we're going to build a nature altar, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a drop-off event. We've got lots of good RSVPs, so I'm really excited. Bring a water bottle. Looks like it's nice weather, so should be pretty good.
Thanks, Naomi. So excited. Yeah, the weather just turned out perfect for it on this particular weekend. Thanks for leading in that. Also, I want to get better about reminding everyone that we are a member-funded or community-funded organization. All our work is funded by the people in the community who share of their resources with us, and we're grateful for everyone who does. But I want to make sure we drop that link so that you always know how to give if and when you are able. Again, we're so grateful for that. I don't have any other announcements. I'm just excited to be here with you all. And so I'm going to let Fran take it from here.
I'm still learning how to change my audio settings. So one moment, please. All right. Each week here at Peace, we chime the hour to sort of serve as a moment of centering so that it's a moment of entering in, like a signal to our brains and our nervous system. So here we chime the hour. We'll chime 10 times. Star under star night. David, don't forget the artwork. Star with royal beauty bright, homeward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, homeward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. When all said and done, all that matters is love, so let love take over, not just in part, but in all that we are. Let our love take over. When all said and done, all that matters is love, so let love take over, not just in part, but in all that we are. Let our love take over. You are here, so am I. There are no boundaries between us, and you are here. I am here. I am the body of this love. When all said and done, all that matters is love, so let love take over, not just in part, but in all
Hello. Wow, I wish I could just sit there and listen to Fran sing. But here we go. Well, let's do the kids' sermon. Kiddos, gather around. Hello. How is everyone doing? How were your holidays? I hope everyone's doing well. I haven't seen you since before Christmas. And so now it's Happy New Year. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a very, very big topic, which is just a little bit of information about Jesus and who Jesus was. And that is we could go on for a very long time to talk about lots of stuff, but we're going to kind of break it down into very simple, just kind of fun things. So just one thing to remember, Jesus was a teacher of the way. So that's like the main thing that we want to focus on today. I'm going to list a few just kind of fun facts about Jesus and see some of those things you actually might have in common. So if you have something in common with Jesus, I'll list off various things. You can stand up if you're sitting down, or raise your hand, or if you want to have a parent, type it in the chat if you feel strongly about something in particular. Let's just see. Let's see what do you have in common with Jesus? What do we all have in common with him? So one of them is Jesus had dark colored hair and dark eyes. So I have that one. Jesus had brothers and sisters. I have that one. Jesus was oldest in his family. Jesus' father could build things. Jesus' mother took care of him. Jesus' parents loved him very much. Jesus spent a lot of time outdoors. Love that. Jesus traveled with his parents. Jesus ate figs and olives. Who likes those? Jesus lived near a big lake. Jesus traveled by boat across the lake. Maybe somebody's been on a boat before. Jesus was kind and loving, even to people who didn't like him. Jesus helped people. I'm pretty sure we've got some big helpers here. And Jesus prayed and felt the presence of God within his heart. Oh, cozy. Yay, you like figs and olives. That's a fun thing you have in common, right? So here's some other things about Jesus that are a lot different than our lives, because Jesus lived a very long time ago. So one thing is Jesus never saw an airplane or a car. Jesus never used an electric stove or a microwave to cook his food. Jesus never wore blue jeans or t-shirts. That'd be cool. I actually really love to see Jesus in that outfit. He usually wore a long, loose tunic with a mantle or like a robe across it. Jesus, the clothes and the things people used in the time of Jesus were handmade. They were not, made in a factory. They were made by hand. And another fun fact is that Jesus did not go to church on Sunday mornings. He celebrated the Sabbath, which began Friday evening, and he went to church, went till Saturday evening. So those are just some fun things to think about, how our lives are different and similar to the time of Jesus. And most importantly, here's just a few things that, I love that hashtag. Here's just a few things that we really want to remember about what Jesus taught us. And Jesus taught that Spirit flows through us and all people. Jesus taught us to have compassion and love for all beings. Jesus taught us to celebrate, laugh, and live in joy and wonder, which I love that. I just feel like Jesus was just a creative person. So he just didn't teach things by the book. He kind of finds a very creative way to teach people. So I love thinking of those things, that Jesus is the teacher of the way. So my prayer for you guys is that this week we'll all strive to be more like Jesus, to see Jesus in other people around us, and to remember that Jesus is our teacher. That's all.
Yep, mic is muted. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, working out transitions. Okay, hey everybody. Yes, grab your communion elements. Feel free to share in the comments what you're using, so we can all react and stuff. I've got this morning beet carrot ginger beer and peppermint bark kettle corn from the Wolf Ranch Farmers Market. If any of you are here in Georgetown, Round Rock. But I'm going to be doing a little mini epiphany in the spirit of epiphany. I have to confess, growing up in an evangelical, non-denominational background, I didn't know what epiphany was, or actually what it even meant. I mean, the definition of the word, I guess, the revelation and arriving at something seems pretty cool. And the fact that we have a whole season in traditional Christian liturgy to reflect on the gift that would be Jesus, the revelation, the arrival of Jesus to the Magi, and then, of course, to the whole world, presenting gifts back to him. Seems like an accurate time to reflect on some gifts recently that I've been given. And so in that regard, one of the gifts that I've been given is the Expanse book series, if anybody has read any of those. They're my wife Sean's probably favorite books. And when we were dating, she wanted to get me to read them. And I had a whole bookshelf full of books. So I was like, maybe someday. I actually had like maybe 2 or 3 of them on my bookshelf at the time. But now I finally picked them up, and I've just been blowing through them. And actually just yesterday I finished book 6, and there's 9 of them, called Babylon's Ashes. And I also know that Joel, if you're watching or plan to watch this at some point, I understand why this one, this book 6 is your favorite now. It's probably the one that I actually took something away from fiction, which is pretty great. And it's about non-dualism. The non-dualism that we need to kind of navigate a pretty complex world. It's kind of hard for me, though, non-dualism, especially coming from evangelicalism to this particular church, to peace, or progressive Christianity tradition in general. Because I think as humans, we like to simplify where we can. We're adapted, to make snap decisions for our survival, to, identify in and out groups, et cetera, to keep us alive, to keep us safe, et cetera. And so thinking of the present, because we tend to make simple decisions to identify, ins and outs, especially in maybe today's socio-political climate. There's a lot of things, a lot of labels we have, like black and white, good, bad, straight, gay, cis, trans, Democrat, Republican, sinner, saint, Christian, if you're not a Christian, and so on. There's so many different labels. But reducing someone to an identity, it's often useful at times, I think, I'll admit, because it brings a sense of belonging, to identify with a community, to identify with one particular label. But it also tells us, who are the abnormals, who are the outcasts. And that's when it's not helpful. So back to the topic of The Expanse, the book is central characters, a man named James Holden. He reevaluates in this particular book why there's a war going on and why the war is being brought to a head. There's 2 main factions in the book. There's the inner planets, which are Earth and Mars, and then there's the outer planets, which are basically everything past the asteroid belt, beyond in our solar system. And they're called belters. And they don't see each other as part of their tribe. And that's probably the central premise of why this war has been boiling. Both sides committed, heinous acts against each other. One side, very more recently, a vile act, and another one a little bit more nefarious, a little bit more sinister as far as generational systematic oppression of the other side. So both sides have stuff going on. They end up reducing each other to their identities. They fail to recognize what they have in common, which is their humanity, that they're all, despite where they grew up, where in the system they happen to be, they've they lose sight of the fact that they're created, they're in the image of God and likeness of God. It's not a Christian book by any means, but they lose sight of their humanity. And in our particular tradition, we recognize that people are made in the image of God. Everyone. And so with the anniversary, you can probably see where I'm going with this, with the anniversary of the insurrection behind us, but also with the Feast of the Epiphany, we can tend to see people, or maybe I tend to see people as one-dimensional. And when we're not, especially if one side maybe did some wrong things or have committed troubling acts or hold troubling views, which maybe we all do, we tend to not credit our humanity to each other. And yes, people can still be wrong, and we can recognize that they're humans like us. And if we look to Jesus in our tradition, the ultimate representation, he was the ultimate representation of non-dualism. He was human and divine, a table tosser, breaker, and carpenter, making things. He deconstructed Judaism, and he constructed a commonwealth of heaven, which we commonly refer to as Christianity in this tradition. And he really paved the way of the both and mentality. We can recognize, each other's different identities. We don't have to hold just and reduce to one particular person and see them as, Republican or evangelical or Democrat or, socialist or, whatever it may happen to be, Christian or non-believer. Just like in The Expanse, Jesus paved the way for the both and mentality. Love that. We can recognize each other as part of the same tribe. And just like in The Expanse, Holden ends up making a series of vignettes on this, intergalactic or intersolar system network to humanize both sides, the Belters, who were seen as just, backwards folk, and the inner planets, who are just seen as these elite snobs looking down on everybody else, trying to bring people together. So hopefully we can recognize that we are made in the image of God in our tradition, and hopefully we won't have another war result because we reduce people to simplistic labels as opposed to recognizing these complex seeds of divinity and humanity among us and within us. So as we participate in the communion this morning, we remember that these elements that we'll partake of, blood and body, popcorn and ginger beer, whatever you happen to have, they connect us to both the humanity and the divinity within Jesus, just as they connect to the humanity and divinity within ourselves and within each other as this universal body we're going on this journey of life with. So I'll begin to read the Liturgy of Communion. It'll be here on the screen, or you can follow along in the guide that's posted in the chat. Everybody will come back up. I will read the non-bolded white text here on the screen, and you can feel free to respond with the bold text. The Lord be with you.
And
Also with you.
Lift up your hearts.
We lift
them to the Lord.
Let us give thanks to the Lord our God.
It is right
to give our thanks
and praise.
Please partake of the elements. Great is the mystery of faith.
Christ has died.
Christ
Christ is risen. Christ is coming again.
Amen.
Alrighty. Well, I think we are moving into our deeper look this morning. I'm so excited about it. And for you all to meet my friend Carissa, who has been kind of a part of the community, like a lot of you, sort of on the outskirts online, but we're, trying to connect more in this season of life where we are trying to find our way back to in-person engagements and community connections. And so we've been able to, Carissa and I have been able to connect some. She's been to some of our gatherings. Some of you have met her already, but I'm excited for you to get to know her more. And by the way, with this deeper look, our intention is always for you all to not just see those of us who are on the screen every week, but to really get to know our community. And if you ever really resonate with someone, but you can't really seem to find them on social media or something, feel free to reach out to me or Fran or Matt or anyone and say, like, I really want to connect with this person because of this. And we can connect with you via email or whatever. But please, like, let this space be a space where you make deeper connections with people. Okay, so Carissa, let's start out by you just telling us about yourself. Introduce yourself to us.
Okay, sure. So I'm Carissa, and I use she, her pronouns. I live in Round Rock. I've lived in Texas since the beginning of the pandemic. I moved here originally. I thought I was just going to be sheltering in place with my parents for like a little while. And then I ended up staying here forever. So I live with my 2 kids. They are 5 and 10 years old. Their names are Mari and Vale. And let's see. I'm originally from Southern California. That's where I grew up. And then when I was 21, I moved to Chicago and lived there for like 12 years, and then moved here. And I work at UT Austin, but I don't have to actually go to campus most of the time, which is really nice. And yeah, I have been a Christian of some sort most of my life. I feel like I'm a naturally religiously, spiritually inclined person. I remember even as a kid being that way, but was Catholic when I was small. And then my parents, like, we were in a sort of like a Baptist church, I guess, when I was in middle school, high school, and kind of was in that way of practice through college. And then since then, I've kind of been figuring out some other things. But yeah, that's about me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know this is a weird and vulnerable space to be in, so really grateful for you right now. And did you see this comment? One of the kids. Yeah, put that on the screen. That's so funny.
I never did see it, but
did you meet? You didn't? You didn't?
Unfortunately, I did not.
Well, so our next question is to tell us some things about you that make you uniquely you, some quirks, some things, you know, people wouldn't know unless you told them.
Well, let's see. I mean, you probably would know this eventually about me, but like I'm very into music. So I play like several instruments. And I also write a lot. That's something that I've always done and I'm trying to do more of. And I guess most people wouldn't necessarily know that about me. I feel like another quirk is like that I love to read or like learn about subcultures that I don't know anything about. Like I love a good like diving into like some weird controversy in like the gaming community, like which I'm not at all a part of, but like I just like learning about it or like what interests people in different subcultures and just like learning, doing like some sort of deep dive. I'm in this like Facebook group called Celebrity Gossip Academic Style, and it's like pretty much what it sounds like. It's just people talking about different things in pop culture and celebrity gossip, but like analyzing them. I find it really fun. So
I think I've told you this, but I need you to like invite me to this group because this sounds like right up my alley. David Stippick saying the same thing. Okay, so we have a question in the comments. Which instruments? What do you write? Tell us more.
Yeah, let's see. Growing up, I played the flute in like public school. So Public School for the Wind for teaching me about music. But I play the guitar. I played the piano for a while. I would love to get back into it. I also play the ukulele. And I like to sing. So that's kind of what I do. And what do I write? I write I guess like different things. So I used to be in academic research, and so like some of that is still with me. Like sometimes I like to research a topic and write about it. But I do a lot of like personal essays, sometimes poetry, stuff like that.
Thank you. I don't know if you have a website or any place to point us to. That is not why people produce and write. They're not doing it so other people can consume it. But feel free to share if you want us to at any point. Let's see. Oh, we have a bonus question for you, and it is: what time of day gives you the most life, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably, if I didn't have kids, I would probably work from like, I don't know, like 3 to 11 p.m. That's when I usually am like most focused and like ready to work. And I often stay up way too late at night just because that's when I often get like my energy, my creativity and stuff like that. So unfortunately, like with kids and having to take them to school, that's like not entirely possible, but yeah.
Good night, owl. Okay, well, for the last question, what is it that you're particularly passionate about right now in your journey, your spiritual journey, your life, that you'd like to share with us?
I think what I've really been thinking about lately is just keeping things simple and getting the basics right in my life, and like just kind of even figuring out what that means for me. But I think I don't know, like being in the pandemic, and I've been in a period of my life where there's just been like a ton of transition. Last year I felt like I was really like, there's so many things I want to do, so many things I want to like change or try. And I was able to kind of like identify things that were important to me, but it was really like, I think like sort of I don't know, the word I felt like I received about that was just like, it doesn't all have to happen at once, and that it's like the most important to really focus on the basics. And so, yeah, just sitting in where I'm at right now in the quiet and like kind of rest of that. And yeah, and just like not being in a rush. So yeah, that's something that's just really been on my mind lately. And that I feel like applies to lots of different parts of life, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just like a mindfulness of the present moment is such a gift when we can grasp onto that and just let go of the rest sometimes. So thank you so much for sharing. It's so great to get to know you. I know this is sort of a newer relationship, so I appreciate you coming on with us this morning, and send some love in the comments so she can go check them out. But yeah, we're just happy to have you. And I guess
Thanks
we'll carry on. Yeah.
Good morning, Peaceniks. One of the things I love about our community that I've been involved with for I think 5 years now is how many journeys many of us have been on over the years. I mean, I can go from Sunday school to atheist. Many of you know I'm a practicing Quaker, still and yet. Anyway, my parents dropped me off at Central Presbyterian Church, Huntington, Long Island, New York, at age 2. I've long suspected that gave them some private time for an hour, hour and a half. Anyway, the church gave me a Bible, and in the frontispiece it says, it's presented to me September 22nd, 1953. So I would have been 7 years old. And it's classic King James, of course. And there are photographs in here. I'm going to see if this will work. Left to right. Okay. Rachel's tomb on the road between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. Well, I happened to be there in Israel in 1981 or 2 or something, and that desolate street scene now looks like congestion, and that was 30 years ago. Like there's probably a McDonald's next door now. So this is the version I chose to read from because it's representative of my early part of my journey. And I'm going to be reading Psalm 23. Some of you may have heard of it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It strikes me, this is an amazingly optimistic, positive, something like that. Reading scripture. No matter what, it's all good. Aurelia, back to you.
Thank you, Paul. I love that reading so much as well. I'm going to read the gospel reading for today, and I'm just sort of getting used to looking at things differently in this new platform that we're using. So bear with me as I pull up my sermon. All right, so our gospel reading is from Luke 3, verses 15 through 18 and 21 and 22. This is the reading from the lectionary for the first Sunday after Epiphany. The people were full of anticipation, wondering in their hearts whether John might be the Messiah. John answered them all by saying, I'm baptizing you in water, but someone is coming who's mightier than I, whose sandals I'm not fit to untie. This one will baptize you in the Holy Spirit and in fire. A winnowing fan is in his hand to clear the threshing floor, gather the wheat in the granary, and a chaff will be burnt in unquenchable fire. When all the people were baptized, Jesus also came to be baptized. And while Jesus was praying, the skies opened and the Holy Spirit descended on the Anointed One in visible form like a dove. A voice from heaven said, You are my own, my beloved. On you, my favor rests. We hear the voice of God in these words. Thanks be to God. Okay, so I'm just giggling a little bit here because today is the first Sunday after the Epiphany. The Epiphany is a day that commemorates the visit of the Magi to the Christ child each year on January 6th. And if you don't know Epiphany, it's a subset of the Christmas season. And the last time I preached about a month ago, we were in the Advent season. But funny enough, the gospel reading for that Sunday that I preached last and this Sunday were practically the same. Today's reading begins midway through that text we already used from Luke chapter 3. And I don't know if you remember this, you'd be paying really close attention to remember each and every text we use for sermons every week. But here's the crossover from that week and today. It's verses 16 and 17. Where John talks about this coming Messiah, a winnowing fan in his hand, gathering up the wheat and throwing the rest into this unquenchable fire. That was our text a few weeks ago. It's the first part of our text today. And today it's also followed by the baptism of Jesus, in which God says, on you, my favor rests. Or possibly a more familiar translation might be, With you I am well pleased. God is pleased with Jesus. I think we can all agree on that part, right? And the church universal has spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years picking apart the life of Jesus, the teachings and ministry of Jesus, his interactions, his death, resurrection. And we've done this too, a lot of us, on personal levels. Some of us have spent our whole lives considering the things Jesus said and did and believed. And so we take all this, and it might not be our first instinct to summarize Jesus in the way John did in today's reading. Yet, twice now in the span of a few weeks, we've been given the same text in the lectionary. Twice, we've been given this image of Christ, winnowing fan in his hand, clearing out every bad thing and burning it all down. And in my last sermon, I had said that the only thing I saw Jesus throwing into unquenchable fires was our understanding of power and our unmovable prescriptions about God. And I read this text again for a new sermon in a new series, in a new season on the other side of a new year. And I still believe this. I still believe that what John is prophesying that Jesus will do, and what Jesus actually ends up doing, is consistent when we consider the powers that be, domination systems and systems of hierarchy in our world. Jesus was in the business, and still is, of flipping these kinds of paradigms on their heads, of getting us out of their luring and or oppressive grips. Remember, his law is love. His gospel is peace. So he's flipping things on its head. And Jesus took and takes our notions of power, and he burned it all down. He burns them all down through his teachings, particularly the Beatitudes, through his actions, the people he associated with and collaborated with and took into his inner circle, through his identity as the antithesis of the kind of warrior king the people had come to expect and hope for, through his weakness, through his death in solidarity with the most vulnerable, the poor, the sick, the suffering, with spirit and fire in tow. He is critiquing religion and politics and every system of power in an embodied way by taking only what is fruitful into the heaven on earth paradigm and dropping the dead weight, throwing it in the fire, burning it down. And God, seeing all of this, looks upon Jesus, his intention, his baptism as he steps into the work, and God blesses it. God says, with this, I am well pleased. God says, on you, my favor rests. I think about this in terms of the season of Epiphany, and particularly our tradition here at Peace, going on 3 years now, go check the podcast, of holding space during the season of Epiphany in our sermons for reflection and vulnerability and wisdom sharing, which is something we hopefully do every week in our sermons, but it's decidedly more personal in this series. We are all people just trying to exist in this world, same as the rest of any of us. And we are learning some things along the way. We're having some spirit nudges and sometimes revelations. And this series is our attempt to offer up some of that. So I want to shift from the exegetical posture of picking apart scripture into my personal epiphany, which is simply rest really is resistance. And as I make this shift, I want to also make the clear connection that just as God blessed the baptism of Jesus as he stood on the cusp of his work, God also blesses us, children of God, and God blesses the liberative work we are doing. God blesses our resistance to the ways of empire, hierarchy, the powers that be, just like God blessed Jesus in this way. God's favor rests upon us in this work. And so as we move from one exhausting year into an unknown year, we are also on the cusp of what is in front of us, whether it be the same old thing or resetting, shifting, making changes. Either way, I want to suggest that deep, consistent rest be a part of this work. Rest is important, and not only is it important, it really is a form of resistance. You may have heard this saying before. It's a little cliche at this point, honestly, but it is empowering because it gives us permission. And when I think deeply about it, it really is true. Rest is resistance, rest is liberation, rest is sacred, and rest should be a part, possibly the most important part, of our spiritual practice and liberation work. So over the holidays, like many people right now, and even more I'm learning, I got COVID. And it was right before Christmas. And so everything, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, my daughter's birthday, which is on New Year's Day, all the hopes and plans we had for any of that were just nixed. And me and Lyle and our daughter Cozy, we quarantined at home. We didn't see anyone. We didn't go anywhere for nearly 12 days. And yeah, I didn't feel well. Lyle didn't feel great. And we still had to parent as usual. But even so, I now realize that this was an opportunity I've never really had before, to have an excuse not to engage with anybody or do anything, and to hunker down because my body physically required it of me, and because I couldn't actually go anywhere, and so I had no choice. I had to hunker down. So unlike any vacation I've ever taken or any time off I've ever had, for a dozen days, I had this very specific and particular kind of empty space. And maybe you've experienced this, when you've gone through this, if you have. But what it ended up revealing to me was the level of my own exhaustion, the extent of how tired I was. I'm talking years worth of exhaustion, certainly months worth. It was physical, it was emotional, and it was spiritual exhaustion. And I needed rest. And for the first time, I felt a level of permission to actually take the rest I needed. And I also came face to face with the realization that so much of my resting is tied to shame and guilt and people pleasing. And so to take the rest simultaneously felt like overcoming. It felt like resistance. It seems obvious now, but I experienced this epiphany on an embodied level. Rest really is resistance. And this mantra has sunk into my consciousness, if you can imagine this, in layers. And as I peel them away, it just gets deeper and deeper. But first of all, first layer, rest is a privilege. Like that our livelihood wasn't negatively affected by our need to isolate and quarantine. Our rest was a privilege. And I think about the various levels and layers of inequities that people experience specifically throughout this pandemic, their need to go back to work, whether they feel better or rested or not, and how now even that's been shortened. It's such a privilege to actually rest. And I don't say this as like, #blessed. I say it with urgency, like understanding that I have to be a part of engaging these inequities, facing how they are impacting those around us right now, and participating in whatever collective work I can to expand the privilege of rest, which really shouldn't be a privilege. It shouldn't be something earned. It should inherently be our right. But earning makes more sense to us, right? That's another thing, another layer I unpeeled when I took this deep dive into rest as resistance. We want to earn our rest, just like we want to earn our goodness and worthiness. I can remember, some of you know this, or I feel like I was talking about it just recently, being a kid, and my dad worked on Saturdays. And I have this memory of him calling me on the phone every Saturday morning just to make sure I wasn't sleeping the whole day away, which, I mean, honestly, as a teenager, you probably need someone to tell you to get out of bed. But he would call, and like any good parent, he would give us chores to do. But I really wanted to sleep late, so I got really good at sounding awake when I answered the phone. Like I'd be like, hello, even though I was dead asleep right before he called, because I did not want him to know that I was sleeping and not doing whatever chores had been assigned to me for that morning. But it's funny because still to this day, like I can't rest well if I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something else for someone else. I can't step away from my work, my household tasks, my parenting responsibilities easily. And hey, if you can, this sermon is not for you. Like, you just enjoy. I'm trying to get to where you are. But we are people who have trouble doing this. We are people who have trouble accepting our imago Dei, that we are automatically good and automatically worthy, and that we don't have to do anything to be good or worthy. But we have trouble accepting this. We want to earn it somehow instead. And we want others to prove it to us, to earn it too. And one of the ways we try to earn our goodness is through our ability to be able to produce for people and systems. I have a colleague friend. His name is Christian Smith. You can look him up on Facebook, Twitter, any of that, Instagram. He's the pastor of the Faith Community based in Atlanta. They're doing incredible things. But I love his social media posts because they're just real talk. And I saw one just last week, and I knew I was going to kind of be writing about this, but I hadn't started yet. But I saw he made a post about rest. And he said, rest isn't a reward for achievement. It's a part of your life cycle. Stop dangling it like a carrot to ensure you hit your goals. So good, right? So we try to overcome this messaging inside of us, but even if we can overcome our own messaging, and many of us have figured out that we believe this to be true, but we still get bogged down by the messaging around us. So much of our inability to prioritize our own rest is that our need for production and achievement is wrapped up in shame and people pleasing. This includes caring about how our image is perceived by others, by the way. And this shame is another layer we must address. In the recent past, I've loved saying that I'm a retired people pleaser, but the reality is I am an aspiring retired people pleaser. And when I had COVID, I was confronted with this in a deep way. I was feeling so out of control about my inability to care for others or check in on the people in my life in a tangible way. But I was also worried, like, what they were thinking about me for not being able to care for them or check in on them. So even though I didn't feel well and literally needed to stay home for the good of society, I still felt guilty about all of that. And I told you that we suddenly had permission to rest for 12 days. But for me, the majority of that time was spent struggling with the shame of how I had or was falling short for others because of my limitations. And it just reminded me that many of us have a lot of shame when we rest. And working through it takes time in the actual moments of rest. Do you ever wonder, like, if you actually get the opportunity for a break or a vacation? It takes long, right? It takes days sometimes to really settle into it. Our minds are so wired to be producing that even if we aren't doing anything, even if we're not technically at work or not with our kids, we're often sitting there with some level of shame preventing us from going into a really deep place of rest. But here's another thing I'm learning, yet another layer connected to this. And now, y'all, we are getting to the heart of it. So if you didn't hear any of that, hear this. Spirit flow exists deeply within a place of rest. Like, we literally have to penetrate an authentic posture of rest to find the deepest, fullest force of spirit in our lives. Spirit flow doesn't exist in productivity culture. It doesn't exist in empire and places of dishealth or in shame. It exists in this deep place of inner rest. It is in this place where we touch up against divine encounter, divine intimacy, divine inspiration, divine hope. I'm thinking Psalm 23 here. Still waters, green pastures, cups overflowing. This is spirit flow to me. And I don't think we can really surrender to it without surrendering to rest. I don't think we can know spirit flow abundantly without knowing rest abundantly too. Hand in hand they go. healing us, making us whole. Rest is physical medicine to our bodies. We know that. We have to make our kids get the sleep they need because we know their bodies physically need it. But rest is also emotional medicine because it provides the space we need to deal with our traumas, our grief, our worries and troubles, recoup, reset. Rest is emotional medicine, and it is spiritual medicine because it's a capacity creator for that stuff of spirit, that stuff of abundance, which is our practices and our movements in the world embodied. Rest energizes us, enabling us to continue on facing our lives. And this energy fuels our creativity. So we're not just existing, we're thriving. Our creativity heals us by offering us beauty and joy and hope and access to so much more. The medicine of rest heals us. And maybe vitamins is a better word. Maybe vitamins, the better metaphor that we ought to be using because we need to be taking it every day in sickness and in health. Rest is really, really, really important on an individual, internal, micro level, but also on our collective macro oneness level. Rest really is resistance. And we need to know that we don't need anyone else's permission but our own to take it, to take our rest. So in 2022, I'm taking my rest. I'm not waiting for it. I'm taking it. And when I take my rest, I'm taking back my power. And when you take your rest, you're taking back your power. And when I take my rest, I'm reclaiming my Imago Dei. And when you take your rest, you're reclaiming your Imago Dei. And when I take my rest, I'm acknowledging my utter goodness. And when you take your rest, you are acknowledging your utter goodness. We take our rest because we already know the way of exhaustion, right? We already know the way of hopelessness. We've already been overwhelmed by the compassion fatigue. Our eyes are open. We've been exposed to what's required of us on the other side of deconstruction, and we've jumped into the work anyway. We've committed to the bigger, wider tables and the bigger, wider imaginations. We've signed ourselves up for the lifelong work of liberation. And I'm saying none of this is sustainable without rest as a high priority. We keep using these old paradigms of rest, of earning, overwork, constant production, draining ourselves dry to do the work of new paradigms that usher heaven on earth. And so the way we engage rest and think about rest, this is the unlearning and reimagining we need to do this year. We need to unlearn the lie that we can do all this liberation work and be resurrection people while running on E. My experience with COVID revealed to me an exhaustion that went deeper than the physical illness of it. It revealed to me a propensity for people pleasing. I thought I had retired. It revealed to me my continued unwillingness to imagine anew in my work ethic and my boundaries, to say no when needed, or it revealed this need to challenge my own inability to stop and rest, to risk what others might think of me. I mean, what greater resistance is there than this work of trading in these old ways of being and learning to embrace the truth of Imago Dei? Is this struggle, is it possible that this struggle is universal? And if so, can this indoctrination be undone among us? In the nuance and paradox places, can we also find healthy balances of work and rest and play and discipline? 2 years ago this month, we created Feed Your Soul Sunday. We did this before the pandemic was even a possibility in our minds, because even then we could see that the way we were going was not sustainable for a healthy community. Nearly every first Sunday, our church stops and rests. No Sunday gathering, no programming. Instead, we encourage people to lean into your particular rhythm of rest and peace and joy, to reclaim your time, to find your own form of healing. We created this space so that our community could collectively embody a new way of being. And I often hashtag those social media posts, if you notice, with hashtag rest is resistance. Have you noticed it? Did you wonder what I meant by it? Well, this is it. So, children of God, we rest. I think about Epiphany and how those magi, after encountering the Christ, didn't go back the way they came. They went back, but they went another way this time. And I think that's what we're doing here. When we decide to truly prioritize rest in our various seasons and in our daily rhythms, we are choosing to go back into our lives. This time, we are going another way, a way that will care for our livelihoods. So I want to end this by simply asking you to thoughtfully consider what rest looks like for you. You'll notice I didn't define rest. I didn't give a prescription for rest. I recognize we are all different people, different seasons, different contexts. Some of us have kids, some of us don't. Some of us are retired, or for whatever reason, life might just move a bit slower. Some of us maybe could use more rest, but don't necessarily resonate with or struggle with the shame aspect of it. But I still think all of us could benefit from really looking at our lives and asking, what does it look like to embody rest as resistance? This conversation is such a privilege to even have. I started with that acknowledgement and I want to end with it. But I still think each one of us has the ability to move closer to rest some way, somehow. And the more of a privilege it is for us to do that, the more it's practicing resistance when you actually find a way to do it anyway. If it's not easy, it's because it was never going to be. It's because rest really is a part of our liberation work. It's a part of our collective building. It's the constant reassessment of our way of being and thinking and doing. It really is resistance. It's not easy. Even so, may we learn to see and value it as resistance. And may deep rest be ours this year. May we claim it. Even though we don't know what's to come, may we know this. May we know rest. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Aurelia. Wonderful. Loved hearing that. Lots of great comments. And so hopefully for all of us that are here, that are tuned in, and if you're listening later on, you can figure out for yourself and in your family and in your own life what it looks like to live with rest as resistance. I'm going to read our litany today. It's Litany for God in the World. You probably hear my children in the background, so it is what it is, y'all. It's written by Reverend Fran Pratt. You're always able and welcome to support Fran here at her Patreon. We do use these litanies from Fran every week, and this is something else that she does, and so we're very thankful and blessed to have Fran in our community and to put these together for us every week. So if you want to look in your guide, that guide is pinned there at the top of the comments. I don't have it up here for us today. I appreciate you guys bearing with us as we play around with our new system here. But so if you want to pull it up here in the comments, I'm going to add some other folks here to read with us, and then we can keep going. All right. So I'll read the regular text and you'll read along in the bold with me. So this is Litany for God in the World. God, as we celebrate Epiphany, the revealing of God with us, God lovingly entered into the earth realm. God in human form. God affirmed by heaven's voice. God sought wisdom from seekers. I don't know why I can't read today. God companionable with creation. God revealed as love. God participating in human life and ritual. God's Spirit among us. We are filled with awe and wonder. We give thanks. We rest with joy and gladness. We let go of fear. For nothing and no one has been left out of God's good plan. Nothing and no one can get between us and you. Our hearts are relieved. Our minds are devoted. Our mouths are full of praise. Our spirits rejoice. Some people look around their world-trained eyes saw only chaos. So they
So
said,
they said,
God has forgotten
forgotten
us. But where we once perceived only darkness, now we perceive goodness. Where we once were scattered,
Yeah.
now we are gathered up. For God has made God's self known within and among us,
And
and
they
encompassed us in love forever. Every day we practice perceiving God in the world and partnering in God's love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. Thanks for your patience as we learn this new platform that we hope everyone's enjoyed. We're going to work out the kinks. Please join me now in the benediction liturgy. Again, I'll read the regular type and you guys can follow along in the bold. Lord, you are ascending God. You sent your word to create. You sent Christ to reveal. You sent your spirit to empower, and you sent the church to proclaim. Send us, O God, to renew the earth. Lead us by your spirit and your word. As your people, we now go by our love. We'll make you known. People of God, you're sent. Go in peace and in rest. For peace. Amen.